So we were talking about the witnesses that have been heard so far, and you were about to tell me about one, or we might cover each one, but which one would you like to speak about?
So the last one that really raised a lot of interest was a person whose house this happened. Again, all this activity happens behind the condos in a darkened area out on a path, and this particular witness, like several others, saw portions of this. But his testimony that was so riveting was that he is the first person who really, with some authority, seems to be able to say who was on top, and meaning there was a scuffle, there was a brawl going on with people on the lawn, and he was prepared to testify to the fact that given what people were wearing, the size of the persons, whether or not they had a red shirt on or a hoodie on or what have you, he determined in his mind that the person on the top and the person who was actually swinging, although he refused to say that those swings were connecting, was in all likelihood Trayvon Martin.
Now, tell me the first name of this witness. Can you?
I don't remember his first name.
Okay.
I believe his last name is Good.
Okay, so Mr. Good.
Yeah.
But at the end, did Mr. Good know Mr. Zimmerman, George Zimmerman? Were they friends, connected?
No.
Not at all?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay, so the state is trying to prove their case, and yet they're bringing on a witness that appears to not support the state's case. So Mr. Good is saying, from what he's apparently pretty confident about it,
right,
that Trayvon William is on top.
Trayvon Martin, yeah.
Trayvon Martin, and that he is swinging and taking punch shots at George Zimmerman. He did not know whether those were connecting or not.
That's right.
And so tell me, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, it is testimony by itself without knowing anything else about what we're going to hear in the case, what forensic evidence we're going to hear, that suggests that the defense theory of the case may have something to it, which is the defense theory has been that somehow in this mess that happened out back, that George Zimmerman got on the defensive, became the guy who was being assaulted, so to speak, to use the vernacular. Up to this point, that has just been a theory, and it's also been something that George Zimmerman has said. But we don't, this is the first witness who has sort of corroborated the defense theory to some extent.
And so, to your degree, from listening to Mr. Good's testimony, how confident did he seem that this is what he saw? No ifs, ands, or buts.
I'd say he sounded pretty confident.
Okay.
Yeah, He was pretty certain that that's what he saw. And in addition to that testimony, without getting too far afield, there was also testimony that there was moisture, that the back of George Zimmerman's coat was wet, and that there was grass on the back of it, which seemed from another witness, that seemed again to corroborate that he might have been the person on the bottom. That, by the way, is not the end of the story. But it's certainly not helpful to the state.
And then we all know that George Zimmerman, at the end of the day, does not have to testify, and typically they don't testify. But this is the kind of testimony that the defense attorneys in their closing arguments could say, look, here's what everybody testified to, therefore it makes sense. We're not telling you that George Zimmerman was on the bottom, or can they say this based on what you heard today? Can they make that argument without George Zimmerman saying that I was on the bottom?
See, what you're doing when you're putting on testimony is you're writing your closing statement. And in fact, some very good lawyers would tell you that they write their closing statement first and then try to get that evidence in that supports the closing statement. And so in this case, I think you're going to hear that George Zimmerman was on the bottom and getting the worst of it.
All right, fascinating. Okay, we have Susan, Brian, Carol, Eugene, all holding on to talk about the George Zimmerman trial. My name is Tom Olsen. The name of the show is Olsen on Law. You're listening to News 96.5. Just out of curiosity, when the defense goes on and brings out their witnesses, can they bring John Good back and say the very same thing he said already?
I don't see why not. I mean, they're entitled to put their case on. They may not have asked everything that they want to ask. I think that that's within the bounds of what they could do. Sure.
So as a defense attorney, they may say, you know what, John Good's got even some more good information, but we're going to save that for later.
They could. I think the judge might put a sort of limitation to this so that it's not cumulative evidence. But if there's more to be said that hasn't been said, I don't see a reason why he could not be called again.